Though gaming's digital revolution of the last decade plus has made it easier than ever for developers to get their games in players' hands, it's also demonstrated the worrying future for game preservation, where digital titles can be removed from a storefront with no warning whatsoever. We recently documented a number of games so uniformly awful that they were delisted from their respective platforms, but some reasons for delisting can get a little bit weird. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games delisted for insane reasons. Number 10, it pissed off the Chinese government. Devotion. Devotion was a psychological horror game released on February 19th, 2019 by Red Candle Games, the team behind 2017's highly acclaimed horror title Detention. Though Devotion received strong reviews upon release, within days players discovered that the Taiwanese game featured an Easter egg mocking China's president Xi Jinping, a piece of Chinese seal script referring to Jinping as Winnie the Pooh, referencing a famous internet meme derisively comparing the leader to the beloved children's icon, was found in the game. As a result, Devotion was review bombed on Steam by allegedly Chinese players, and though Red Candle promptly patched out the offending material, complaints continued to mount over aspects of the game which were perceived as anti-China. Devotion was pulled from Steam in China, but just 6 days after its release, Red Candle delisted the game globally, citing both technical difficulties and the pressure put upon them by the backlash, which included their own publishers cutting ties with them. In December 2020, it was announced that the game would be returning for sale on the good old game store, yet mere hours later, GOG reversed their stance, apparently due to receiving many messages from gamers asking them not to sell it. Devotion finally became available once more in March 2021 when Red Candle opened their own digital store where they were free to sell whatever they wanted. Number 9, it was a secret crypto miner. ABSTRACTISM. ABSTRACTISM was released on Steam in March 2018 and was marketed as a relaxing platformer with an ASMR soundtrack and no game over, in turn encouraging players to get into a trance-like state while playing it for hours on end. However, the game from Studio Okalo Union was delisted 4 months later following an investigation into its disproportionate CPU and GPU usage. It was eventually discovered that ABSTRACTISM contained a secret cryptocurrency mining software, and that the developers even encouraged players to just leave the game running all day, allowing the miner to make the most of each customer's hardware. Beyond the sheer deception of surreptitiously installing something the player had no knowledge of, crypto mining software could also hamper the performance of a player's computer and even increase their electricity bills. Other players began to report that the developer was also selling fraudulent items on the Steam marketplace, and so ABSTRACTISM was pulled from Steam along with Okalo Union themselves. Number 8, a pirate version was published on Steam, The Sinking City. Frogware's action-adventure game The Sinking City was released in June 2019, but it ended up being delisted from digital platforms in August 2020 as a result of a dispute between Frogwares and their original publisher, Nacon. Frogwares claimed that Nacon had missed promised payments to them and also attempted to stake ownership of the Sinking City IP, which still belonged to the developer. Everything seemed to be resolved in February 2021. However, when the game returned to Steam, Frogwares soon enough made a post urging players not to buy it. Their reasoning? Well, they alleged that Nacon republished the game without their permission, downloading the Sinking City from another storefront, Games Planet, editing the game's code to conceal its origin, and then re-uploading it to Steam. Frogwares accused Nacon of both hacking and piracy, and after the game was added and removed from Steam numerous times, it was decisively delisted in March 2021 after Frogwares filed a DMCA takedown request. The game was finally relisted 3 months later, though the outcome of Frogwares' dispute with Nacon hasn't yet been made public. Number 7, the publisher falsified Steam reviews. Guardians of Ember. MMORPG Guardians of Ember was released on Steam Early Access in 2016 and ended up being delisted in February 2018 after Valve discovered that publisher Incel Games had pressured its employees to buy both the game and write a positive review of it on Steam. A leaked email allegedly written by the studio's CEO not so subtly implied that employees' jobs were at risk if they didn't play ball and inflate the Steam reviews of not only Guardians of Ember, but also another of the studio's MMORPGs, Wildbuster Heroes of Titan. Almost a year following the delisting, it was announced that Guardians of Ember was being resurrected as a free-to-play title after being acquired by another publisher, Gameforge. This relaunch didn't last long though, as in February 2020, the game was shut down for good, seemingly unable to escape the shadow of all that poor PR. Number 6, Disney stopped paying for the DRM license, TRON Evolution. Third-person action game TRON Evolution was released in late 2010 to tie in with the blockbuster film TRON Legacy, and despite mixed reviews, became a bit of a cult fave in the years following its release. The game's commercial underperformance, though, caused developer Propaganda Games to shut down less than 2 months after launch. Yet, bizarrely, the game became entirely unplayable in April 2019 because of its secure ROM DRM implementation. Basically, publisher Disney Interactive Studios stopped paying their subscription fee to SecuROM to provide authentication services for the game, meaning that it could no longer be launched or even installed. As a result, TRON Evolution was pulled from Steam almost a decade after its original release, and though Disney did promise to look into the issue, to date they either haven't renewed the DRM or, ideally, removed the authentication altogether. Number 5. The studio changed their name to Very Positive, Emoji Evolution. Sometimes a developer's desperate attempt to part players with their cash is so ingeniously underhanded that you kinda have to give them a begrudging measure of credit. And that's certainly the case with the studio behind puzzle game Emoji Evolution, who attempted to exploit Steam's review system by changing their developer and publisher name to Very Positive. Given that Very Positive is one of the top rating categories on Steam's user reviews, and the developer/publisher's name appears just below it, it's easy for players to take a fleeting glance at the game's Steam page and assume that it received, well, a very positive rating. It didn't take long for Valve to catch wind of this deception though, prompting them to swiftly remove Emoji Evolution from Steam, along with the dubiously monikered company behind it. The developer at least appeared to take it in their stride though, hilariously retorting to the delisting, quote, "If making awful games is not allowed on Steam, why haven't they already suspended the CDPR account?" Number 4, because of the pandemic in China, Plague Incorporated. RTS pandemic simulation game Plague Inc. was initially released back in 2012, though understandably enjoyed quite an uptick in popularity following the onset of the pandemic. But in late February 2020, roughly 2 weeks before the World Health Organization officially declared COVID-19 a pandemic, Plague Inc. was removed from all digital storefronts in China, allegedly due to the Chinese government believing that the game contained, quote, illegal content. Given that the takedown notice didn't specify which content was law-breaking in China, it was widely assumed that the Chinese government had the game delisted due to the onset of the pandemic, which first registered cases in the Chinese city of Wuhan. With Plague Inc. becoming a top-selling app in China as the virus spread, it suddenly disappeared. Number 3, the lead developer made a death threat against Gabe Newell, Paranautical Activity. FPS Paranautical Activity was released on the platform on October 20th, 2014. However, in what might be a world record for a developer firebombing their own work, the game ended up delisted just 1 day later. Paranautical Activity was pulled from Steam after the game's creator grew frustrated that it still had the early access label, despite now being in full retail release. More to the point, they actually tweeted about wanting to kill Valve co-founder Gabe Newell for the mistake, prompting Steam to respond by delisting the game and ceasing all business with the company, Code Avarice. The creator expressed remorse for this post, though ultimately failed to mend the rift with Steam, and eventually decided to sell Paranautical Activity to a new company, who republished a new Deluxe Atonement Edition version of the game on the platform in February 2015. Code Avarice was subsequently allowed to publish their future games, Arcshot and Seasons Beatings, on Steam, but neither of them quite made a dent. Number 2, to increase the value of the franchise, every bad-to-mediocre Sonic game. In October 2010, Sega announced that any Sonic game with an average Metacritic score would be pulled from physical retail catalogs and any digital storefronts in an attempt to, quote, increase the value of the then flagging franchise. So the likes of 2006's Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Unleashed, and Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, which posted terrible to underwhelming Metacritic scores ranging from 43 to 69, were all pulled out of circulation to make way for new Sonic games, Sonic Colors, Sonic Freeriders, and Sonic the Hedgehog 4. That is a lot of Sonic, my friends. The idea, ironically, was to avoid oversaturating the brand, and in Sega's defense, both Sonic Colors and Sonic the Hedgehog 4 did go on to become critical and commercial hits. Even so though, pulling bad games off the market in an attempt to rescue an ailing brand was basically unheard of up to this point, and it was a number of years before Sega relented and restored the maligned Sonic titles. Number 1, for being too old. Pandemic the board game. The classic board game, Pandemic, was adapted into digital form in 2013, yet in early 2022 it was quietly delisted from Steam by publisher Asmodee Digital. While players assumed at first that this was due to a licensing agreement with board game developer Z-Man Games coming to an end, that actually wasn't the case at all. In a correspondence with PC Gamer, Asmodee hilariously admitted that the truth was both simple and a little bit odd. The reason being the fact that Pandemic was just damn old now. They said, quote, "The Pandemic app was released 9 years ago, and we no longer feel the current quality and reliability of the game is on par with what Pandemic deserves on digital platforms. The time has come to make way for the digital future of Pandemic," end quote. The company followed up that the decision was made, quote, "with a heavy heart and for multiple reasons that we cannot disclose," end quote. And after reading between the lines, it's easy to suspect that Z-Man Games may have commissioned a glossy new reboot of the series due for release soon, albeit without this developer's involvement. Otherwise, delisting it without having a replacement in the works just seems totally bizarre. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about the delisting of these video games? And are there any intriguing stories that I missed off here? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture Gaming for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.